Gamers have had a love and hate relationship with the Dragon Age series over the years. Everyone went completely nuts over Origins, but just about everybody hated the claustrophobic and repetitive Dragon Age 2. Well, I'm glad to say that with Dragon Age Inquisition, BioWare has returned to the very large open areas prevalent in the first title. But they also brought along a hell of a lot of the series' baggage, which keeps it from reaching the greatness that it should have attained. First off, the story, while being epic in all the right places, borrows characters and plot points from the previous two games, including Corypheus, the head villain. BioWare stated in an early interview that they had looked closely at Skyrim for inspiration, and the story really reflects that. Your character quickly comes to be revered in a rather messianic way. Replace Dragonborn with Herald of Andraste, and then later Inquisitor, and the plot similarities become painfully obvious. The storyline is split into several main missions, and then there are a daunting amount of side quests. And while many of them are your typical collect all of these, find so many of those style affairs, there are also side quests that directly affect the plot, even so far as changing the way the final battle of the game plays out. There is a series of quests that involve Morrigan's mother that, if done right, will cause a giant green dragon to appear and fight for you during the last boss fight. Choices you make in conversations, how you complete various quests, and how you treat those you come in contact with all have an effect on either the way the story plays out or, in the least, what kind of perks and equipment you receive. This does a great job of making you feel like you're a part of a living, breathing world, but again, it's more or less a world you've been to before in other games. As in the previous titles, you create your character. You can choose from 4 races this time: human, elf, dwarf, and in a first for the series, the hulking demonic Qunari. BioWare has also improved on equipment customization. In the previous titles, you could purchase the same equipment for all your team members, and the gear looked like the same gear regardless of who was wearing it, so you would end up with what looked like a team of nondescript clones. Now, if a piece of armor, for example, can be worn by multiple classes, it will look different depending on who is wearing it, which gives the character a more unique, stylized look. And speaking of customization, there's a lot you can do here. Many weapons and armor have rune slots that you can modify to boost abilities, or you can just find all the materials you need and build your own, often to superior results compared to the gear bought in stores or dropped by enemies. Each character has various skill trees to power up, which can be reset at any time for a set fee, and once you get farther into the game, there are additional ability trees that become available for each character, furthering their damage potential and their protection potential. The graphics are both a blessing and a curse. The frame rate stays solid at 30 frames per second, and the worlds created here, while not the most original I've seen, are nevertheless breathtaking. The draw distance is quite impressive. Once they're loaded, that is. That's right, BioWare also apparently thought it wise to bring over the shitty texture loading from their previous titles. Texture pop in here, texture pop in there, texture pop in when an area first loads. It's a common sight, especially during busy cutscenes. And just like with Mass Effect 3, the cutscenes appear to be the only time when the frame rate stutters, sometimes dropping below 20 frames per second. Hopefully this will be hammered out when BioWare finally comes to their senses and stops bothering with porting their games over to the previous generation. The characters bear obvious improvements over those in the previous games, though BioWare still doesn't appear to have mastered hair. Take the beard on my character here. It looks completely last gen, like he's taped a paper beard to his face. It reminds me of the facial hair in the last gen WWE games Create a Wrestler mode. Some of the facial animation could use some work too. After seeing the facial animation in games like Rise Son of Rome and The Order 1886, it's hard to be impressed by the last gen tech on display here. And for fuck's sake, is it just me, or do most of the women in this game have breasts that are placed near the bottom of their rib cage? Does Thetis have stronger gravity than Earth? Is sagging a serious issue in the Land of Dragons? And in the name of all that does not suck, what the hell is up with Sarah's fucking face? She looks like a Vulcan with Bell's palsy. She looks like a cross between Batboy and Sloth from Goonies' uglier sister. I realize not all characters need to be pleasant to look at, but god damn. I love the character. She's a perfectly snarky comic relief and works great as an archer, but I cringe every time she grins. They should have just named her Glitch, because every time I have to talk to her, I think the game is goddamn broke. If you enjoyed the music from Skyrim, well hell, you'll love the music here. Several tracks sound ripped straight from the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, with a good lick of Braveheart thrown into the mix. I love the music in the game, and it suits the game very well, but most of the time I was bouncing back and forth between enjoying it and catching snippets here and there that reminded me of compositions from other games or films. It's good, but not overly original. The voice acting, on the other hand, is top-notch. Fantastic work. I can't think of a single bad voice actor in this game. Every voice fits the character perfectly. As for gameplay, there's a lot of wiggle room at play here. You can choose to play in an action RPG style similar to Dragon Age 2, or you can use tactical mode, making a return here from the PC version of the original game. One press of the DualShock 4's touchpad throws you into an overhead view where you can position your characters, choose their actions, and then unpause the game and watch the results unfold. You can also simply dictate the behaviors of each character from the menu and let them run on autopilot, which works just fine. From the menu system, you can choose which spells and abilities your characters can and cannot use, how low they'll let their health go before healing themselves or healing you, whether they stay close or hang out and rely on ranged attacks, and so on. If you're like me and prefer the action approach, you'll be happy here as the controls are highly responsive. The layout is easy to grasp and becomes second nature in short order. You can quick switch to any of your other characters at will during the fight if you need to make quick adjustments to your strategy. It all works very well, and you'll need it to, especially with the dragon battles. Most of the dragon fights are completely optional, but without a pure metric ton of grinding, there is no killing dragons in a couple of blows like you can later on into Skyrim. The dragons here are larger, meaner, stronger, and take several minutes to take down. You have no dragon shout to keep them on the ground here, so make sure to pull them up in the tactical menu, look at their weaknesses, and especially look at their level, fall back, re-equip accordingly, and aim for the back legs until dead. There's your strategy. And if the dragon is even one level higher than you, just swallow your fucking pride and come back when you've gone up a few levels, as the enemies do not scale up to your experience level in this game. You either dominate or you get your ass handed to you by enemies you aren't ready to take on yet. Later in the game, you'll earn various mounts that you can use to traverse the large open maps, and until you discover all the campsites and can fast travel between them, having these horses and horse-like creatures makes exploration a lot easier. I have only one gripe with the gameplay itself, and that's with health potions. Once properly leveled up, you can carry up to 12 health potions at a time, but this isn't per character. This is shared across the whole party. In some of the later battles, especially the dragon fights, 12 potions split amongst 4 characters doesn't stretch very fucking far. Sure, you have mages that can cast healing spells, but what if you didn't bring that mage with you? Then you're screwed. Then all you have is your potions, and once those are gone, they're gone. The one plus is you don't have to waste time buying potions. Each time you fast travel to a campsite, your potions are refilled, so there's that, I suppose. Still, it would have been better to let each character have their own inventory where health potions are concerned, to keep them from hogging all your shit during the more challenging battles. As it stands, go into the menu and just set when they use a life potion to the lowest health level possible and hope for the best. Another cool aspect of the game is the war room. Here, you and your advisors plan out your strategies and work to consolidate your power and authority across Thedas. You have an influence meter that fills up as you conquer forts, defeat bosses, and complete quests. Each time you level up your influence, you earn a perk point that can be used in the war room to give you new abilities and other goodies, like cheaper prices at the shops, the ability to carry more items, greater experience percentages earned, and that kind of thing. The rest of the time, you'll be presented with various scenarios on your map that must be addressed. Selecting which of your advisors to handle each situation determines how much time it takes to complete the task, how the task is handled, and what the final reward will be. This also plays into what areas you can access on the map. For instance, you may come across a destroyed bridge while exploring. When you come back to your castle, there will be a mission to rebuild that bridge. Once the timer runs out, this opens up access to the area on the other side of the map, along with all the treasure and side quests therein. It's a cool mechanic and I enjoyed using it. It was almost like playing a very light basic Risk. As with the previous titles, you can choose whether to play as a male or female, and choose whether to be straight or gay. Short of one side quest where the character Dorian comes out to his old man, this doesn't have much effect on the overall plot, but it does add some diversity to the mix for all my LBGT viewers out there. When the game first came out, there was a big brouhaha over the inclusion of a quote-unquote transgendered character in the game, but it's not really all that apparent. When I first met the character, I just took her, or him I should say, as a rough-and-tumble Ripley-type female. The character just looks like a woman in men's armor with short hair, and still has a feminine but no-nonsense voice performance. Some of the stories he shares provided some unexpected humor, and that was really cool. Anytime that a game can make me laugh, that's a good thing. It was nowhere near as big of an issue as people made it out to be. And even if they had planned it out as a woman who had, I don't know, had a spell cast on them to turn them into a man, it wouldn't have mattered. The character provides humor and is well written and performed. You'll never hear me complain about that, no matter what they got between their legs. And now we come to the main reason why this game won't be making it into the 6 to 7 range on my 7th scale, and that would be glitches. I can't speak for the Xbox One or PC versions of this game, but the PS4 version, much like Skyrim, is chock full of glitch bullshit. Conversations where the other character disappears. Pressing the jump button at the wrong time, causing your character to get stuck in a floating, fucked up moonwalk-like animation. Side quest characters that not only appear in hard-to-reach places, but are also floating in midair, making it impossible to engage in conversation with them until they eventually walk back onto solid ground, if they ever do. The aforementioned texture pop in, and then there's the Big Daddy, the Grand Poobah, the ultimate in glitches. Suffice it to say, there's nothing worse than getting all the way to the last fucking boss of an 80-plus hour game, commencing to just straight dominating his ass, and then this happens. Yep, on top of all the other decidedly minor glitches at play here, Dragon Age Inquisition also loves to dump you out to the PS4 menu screen, seemingly at random, but almost always at the very worst, most inconvenient point. All I can say is, save well and save often, cause god damn. Dragon Age Inquisition is a worthy successor to the original game, but considering how buggy the first game could be, that's a bit of a loaded statement. No matter how pretty a game is, no matter how good the gameplay is, there's just no valid explanation for a game that decides at random when you've had enough and dumps you to a fatal error screen. And as long as this game has been out, there's no excuse for why it hasn't been patched out by now. The game's lack of originality would have kept it from a perfect score anyway, but shit like this is just fucking inexcusable. The fact that I had such a good time with it, while it allowed me to, is the only reason why this one didn't nosedive right into a don't buy this shit review. Dragon Age Inquisition should have been a 6, but in this case, I have no choice but to instead give its glitch-ridden ass a 5 out of 7.